Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Parker Show. This is episode 442, and I want to talk today about safety and security, and the importance of a population feeling safe and secure. It's not just about freedom and liberty and democracy, although those are the pillars of a society we all want to be a part of, or most of us do anyway, and certainly our founding fathers did. But safety and security is foundational. It is required. You can have all of the rest, but if you do not feel safe and secure, your life takes a downward turn for sure. So when it comes to the macro analysis of safety and security, when it comes to policy implemented by our leaders to make sure that we are safe and secure, how do we answer some of these questions? First, I want to remind you to go to theandrewparkershow.com, theandrewparkershow.com. Visit our website, subscribe. Do it right now. And text us. If you're watching, I have put the text up on the screen, 952-522-2818. That is 952-522-2818. Text us if you agree, disagree. Text us your email address, or simply go to theandrewparkershow.com and subscribe and get all of the updated episodes, up-to-date episodes, and share your thoughts or your concerns regarding the issues of the day. We talk politics, Israel, and the law. Each and every episode, we've got some great guests coming up. The fighter to rid the world of anti-Semitism, something that is thousands of years old, but really an author and doing her part. Melanie Phillips will be on the show shortly in a few episodes. In addition, we will have Rich Goldberg back on the show, expert on Middle East policy, in particular on Iran, and we will talk with him about current state of affairs. I'm going to talk a little later in this episode about alarming information and news that is coming out of the Middle East. So make sure to listen through to the end. This isn't going to be too terribly long an episode, but listen through to the end to get an update, which you may or may not be aware of, as the legacy media so seldom covers. Not only doesn't cover accurately, but doesn't cover at all when important things occur in the Middle East that affect the United States, certainly affect the state of Israel. So turning to safety and security, should the U.S. have sovereign borders? I mean, it is, you would think it's not even worthy of a debate, but it is a real debate in the halls of Congress, in academia for sure. Those on both sides of the aisle and political spectrum in the body politic debate the idea as to whether the U.S. should have sovereign borders. And listen to the argument. the argument that no, we don't need to have borders. Yes, all of the people flooding into this country over the last several years, in the tens of millions, who are not American citizens, who come from other countries around the world, many argue should be allowed here without process, without recognition of action at the border or protection against an invasion of non-citizens to the United States. And the reason is because in today's day and age, it has become a global market. There is globalism that is on the march. And we are all one people, and it isn't that there aren't differences, but those differences strengthen us. And therefore, having borders and protections and exclusion is not consistent with that. And again, we are strengthened by our differences and bringing in people with different skills, different thoughts, different attitudes about how society should work and be run is beneficial. Should non-citizens be allowed into the country without any process, no vetting whatsoever? And again, many people say yes. Now, there are many more, I believe, that say no. We need a process. We need to vet people. It's dangerous out there. The world is filled with those who want to do us harm. And coming into this country without vetting will create an unsafe and insecure America. Seems to make perfect sense. What about those who, for example, want to come to this country but not assimilate and rather bring their the character of their previous country, their home country, to the United States to make the United States more like that? What about those people? Is that seditious? Is that treasonous? Is that anti-American? Well, as everyone says, we're a melting pot, are we not? Of immigrants, all bringing their backgrounds together to strengthen the United States. But what if you wanted to establish Sharia law as the law of the United States? And you came here and you grew and you expanded and you got elected and you used the democratic process and the civil rights and other freedoms and liberties that we demand here in this country in order to change this country and in order to have an entirely different type of rule of law, a rule of law that treats women purely as second-class citizens, treats infidels as in a caste system as lesser than, and in fact under a different set of rules that do not provide the same rights as others, infidels, those who are not believers. So religious freedom would be out the window, but we have the right to make those changes. So what if the population grows and grows and grows in that direction until there is sufficient critical mass to, in fact, make those changes? Maybe little changes like changing the law in a small town, a small border town in one of the states, and then it expands to a county. And pretty soon one state, an entire state, wants to change the rules. So when it comes to immigration, is it dangerous for us to allow the invasion that has occurred over the last several years, the Biden years in particular? Because remember, while it occurred under Obama, nowhere near as much. And secondly, Obama kicked out, deported many, many immigrants. He was the chief deporter up to that point. And, now arguably Trump has really muscled him out of that position with strength. Calling in the National Guard, etc. So is that a supportive action in order to protect safety and security in the United States? Or is it xenophobic? And if it relates to Muslims, is it Islamophobic? Or is it to protect our values, our institutions, safety and security of the citizens of the United States? Well, certainly when immigrants come here and violate the law, and they shouldn't be here in the first place, at least under the current law, the democratically established law, that if you do not like, you can democratically change the law, but you shouldn't change the law by simply vigilante action, that is, by allowing an invasion of tens of millions and ignoring the democratically enacted laws, ignoring them and saying, I don't like those laws, I'm going to make up my own, even though they are not enacted, even though they don't go through the process that is required. I'm going to ignore the law, and I'm going to change policy even though it is not democratically established policy. That's dangerous. That's very dangerous, isn't it? In the abstract, it's very dangerous because those that voted for the representatives that established the law are expecting that the law be followed. And if it doesn't matter who is elected, who's in the majority, who can carry forth bills that get passed and then signed into law, if it doesn't matter, it is a complete destruction of the democratic process. And that is what has happened when tens of millions storm the Bastille, or in this case, come into the United States without going through any process whatsoever. Of course, then when you say, all right, we're going to correct that, that was error, that creates a very unsafe and insecure country, society, and you go to correct it, and the people who want this globalism, they want to ignore the laws on the books, the democratically enacted process. They say, no, you can't do that, and we are going to fight against you doing it. We are going to, again, ignore the law in preventing you from doing it. And, in fact, we are going to go through the judiciary, which is part of the process, and launch case upon case upon case upon case to bog you down. And that's what's happening. Note that the Supreme Court, in the cases that it has heard and had to resolve, on its rocket docket. It's not really a rocket docket. It's an emergency petition sort of list of cases. 90% of those cases, Donald Trump has won. You wouldn't know it by the headlines because you often read, federal court judge blocks Trump from, removing those in the U.S. who are here illegally. Then you have this dichotomy where people say, well, okay, they're here illegally, but they'll go through the process and they should be allowed to stay while that process is lined up. Might take 5 years for them to get a hearing, but that's okay. They say, now, if they commit a crime while they're here and they shouldn't be here in the first place, okay, but that's very few. So few, it's negligible, it's not worth talking about. That's what many argue. Many in the Democratic Party, they argue that. And they say, and because you're trying, we disagree with you, we are going to stand in the way of you removing people who are here illegally. We're going to stand in the way of immigration services doing the job that the democratically elected members of Congress, have established and enacted laws for them to carry out. We are going to stand in the way of those. It seems fairly dangerous. Now let's turn for a minute from ignoring safety and security and allowing this country to be overrun. In certain places, actually, by those who are here without any process. Now, listen, I have a big heart for immigration. I want a big door of immigrants coming to this country. As is said, immigrants built this country. But they came here through a process. Year in, year out, decade in, decade out. They came here with a process, and don't forget that. It wasn't a free-for-all. And nowhere is it a free-for-all. And I would be opposed, vehemently opposed, to closing the immigration process, to having quotas. But there needs to be a process. There needs to be a vetting. There needs to be rules. And if we are truly all Americans, we need to assimilate under the Constitution together. And that has not happened all the time. To be clear, it has not happened all the time. I live and work in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And there are many people here who have not, choose not, and will not assimilate. And there are many people here who will not stop fighting for change in what this country stands for, but rather will argue for Sharia law. And is this Islamophobic? Is this xenophobic? No, it's not. It's fact. There are many people who believe that. Now, many of them, I would say like Jolani Hussein, they have become quite adroit at using our system to call upon change and to speak out in what I see as blatant anti-Semitic rhetoric. And it's dangerous. But what is important. And what happens is if you don't assimilate, if you don't want to truly become an American under the Constitution, believing in the Declaration of Independence and the constitutional rights of all, including citizens from other countries that went through the process, of which most of us did. What ends up happening is you bring from your country thoughts, ideas, and apply them here. Now, there are some, there are bad people in every religious group, in every racial group, in every gender group, in every two genders, some say. Others say there are many more. Every gender group, etc. They're good people, they're bad people. Let's not paint with a full brush across the board. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Are you a business owner? Are you losing sleep because you feel your partner isn't carrying their weight, or because you no longer share the same vision or values? Are you no longer comfortable going into your own office? Are you walking on eggshells in the company you built? This is Chris Daniels, founding partner of Parker Daniels Keyboard LLC, a premier litigation law firm headquartered in downtown Minneapolis. For more than 30 years, I've specialized in business litigation and have helped hundreds of business owners resolve troubling business disputes. As a former certified public accountant, I get to the heart of the dispute, including financial issues. Business divorce can be messy, time-consuming, and costly, but doing nothing can cost you a lot more. Not just money, but emotionally, physically, and in your personal life. If you and your business partner no longer see eye to eye and you're eager to take a proactive approach and make a change, please call me at 612-355-4100 and schedule a consultation. Or visit our website at www.parkerdk.com.
Looking to reduce your tax liability and grow your portfolio? Consider Texas-based Texacoma Resources. They have been delivering results for over 40 years in energy investments. Investors may benefit with strategic advantages like depreciation, depletion, and drilling, but should consult their tax advisors for their specific situation. Call True North Investment at 612-968-3442 to learn more. That's True North Investment, 612-968-3442. Texacoma Energy that works for you. Corruption and fraud has occurred here in Minnesota. And it's amazing how large it is. Or is it amazing? Not all Somalis committed these crimes. And we'll see how big it is and who committed them, and what, because we have a judicial system that, generally speaking, works and, in any event, is the best in the world. For all of its frailties and weaknesses. The best in the world. So it will get to the bottom of it, hopefully. But if you look at Somalia, the research is that on the corruption chart, and there has been an analysis of all countries, 180 or so, across the world, in terms of the corrupt nature of their government and how they choose to live. And the corruption in Somalia is second to none. It ranks at the bottom of all these countries. Now, does that mean Somalians are bad people across the board. They're fraudsters. They're all painted with the same brush. No. You know, Bernie Madoff was one of the worst white-collar criminals in American history. No question about it. He was Jewish. Sadly. He was an Orthodox Jew. Sadly. At least he portrayed himself as such. Does that mean that every Jewish person is painted with the Bernie Madoff brush? No. He was brought to justice. The assassin of Yitzhak Rabin, Jewish. Jewish. Baruch Goldstein was Jewish, another assassin. Does that mean that all Jews are Baruch Goldstein? No. And he was brought to justice. So we have a system that can deal with these issues, and you can't paint with a broad brush. However, the community that has been established did not call this out sooner. This is a huge issue, and it runs rampant within the community. Doesn't mean everybody. May not even mean a majority. Who knows what the numbers are, other than it runs rampant. And that impedes our safety and security. Ultimately, what we want is a country that is grounded in the values that it was founded upon. And when those values are eroded, it raises concern, real concern. And when we have allies that support those values and that carry and live and die for those values, those are allies we want to bolster. Those are allies we want to stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder with. And I would argue the number one ally in that regard is the state of Israel, as you know. Let me give you a bit of news then that came out just yesterday, this second week of December, in a speech just a few days ago. Hamas leader Khaled Mashal, been around forever. He's got Jewish blood on his hands that he'll never get out. He said that the terror group will not disarm. They will not relinquish power in Gaza or allow any external oversight in the Gaza Strip. All of these things were required under the terms of the Gaza peace plan, the 20-point plan. All of these things were alleged to have been agreed to by Hamas. And everyone cheered and said, oh, isn't this great? Well, shocking, or maybe not, once again, this Muslim group, Hamas, with a constitution to destroy every Jew and the state of Israel, in writing, their constitution talks of it, they lie. They blatantly, outwardly lie. Mashal, their leader, is now saying, protecting the enterprise of the resistance and its weapons, this is our people's right to defend itself. The resistance and its weapons are the honor and glory of the Islamic nation, close quote. He goes on. The end of the war was declared 2 months ago, but the battle is not over. The October 7 Al-Aqsa flood, that's what they call it, the heinous atrocities that they committed against innocent kids, elders, grandparents, peace-loving people at a music festival. They call the Al-Aqsa flood. These are despicable people. And I hate to say it, but how can you say anything but? Nazis who carried out atrocities like that, how can you say anything but? This is the most similar that has occurred anywhere since World War II to Nazi-like atrocities. He goes on to say, the Al-Aqsa flood, with its might, has prepared the international arena. See what they're doing? And Western Europe laps it up like lapdogs. The Democratic Party's doing the same. He goes on to say, this is our opportunity to build on this in order to expel this entity, talking about Israel, from our homeland and from the international stage. The destruction of the state of Israel is what he is speaking of. And there are many in the Middle East who support him in this. There are many in Europe who support him in this. There are many in this country, the United States, who support him in this. They walk the halls of Congress. They walk the streets of Minneapolis. The Israeli Foreign Ministry responded to the Hamas leader's comments, stating, Hamas is making a mockery of President Trump's peace plan. He called the Hamas leader's speech a direct contradiction of the core terms of the peace plan itself. Tammy Bruce, State Department spokesperson for the United States, also said that she, in the United States, expects Hamas to abide by the deal they signed. Hamas, quote, Hamas has agreed to all 20 points of President Trump's 20-point plan. That means Gaza will be fully demilitarized for the sake of Gazans. Of course, that isn't going to happen. I talked about it on the show weeks ago, a few months ago, in fact, when this first occurred. This wasn't a peace plan. It was a ceasefire plan at best, and we have been living primarily with that ceasefire. But there is no peace because Hamas will not allow the Jews to survive or the land of Israel to survive. And again, there are many in Western Europe that agree. There are many in this country that agree. There are many in the Democratic Party, sadly, and even in the Republican Party now. And there are many right here in the city of Minneapolis, sadly. Hamas continues to violate the ceasefire deal. They're killing Gazans. They're crossing the yellow line repeatedly. Bibi Netanyahu said the other day that Israel and Hamas are very, very shortly expected to move into the second phase of the ceasefire deal. He calls it the ceasefire deal. But Hamas has not returned the last body person that was taken into Gaza. They have not returned them, and they have refused to demilitarize, lay down their weapons, or allow an external governing body to control. In addition, a few headlines. Lebanon foreign minister says Hezbollah disarmament depends on Iran. Well, that's great. You're going to get a lot of satisfaction there. And so the U.S. may have to continue its battle with Iran. Just so you know, a Democratic Senator, Chris Van Hollen, last week attacked Ron Halber, Jewish community leader. He was the CEO. He is the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. And it was a disgraceful statement. I don't know how else to say it. Republicans, Democrats is the statement made. Let me just see here. In Jewish Week's editorial, it was an op-ed. They say Senator Chris Van Hollen's attack on Ron Halber, the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, wasn't just thin-skinned, it was disgraceful. Republicans, Democrats, faith leaders, agency heads, and local officials all know Halber as a straightforward, principled, and impeccably prepared advocate. His word carries weight because he has spent decades proving it deserves to. Halber noted what has long been evident, and that is Van Hollen's ongoing hostility toward Israel and his increasingly visible role as a leader of the progressive anti-Israel flank of the Democratic Party. The observation was neither inflammatory nor new. It was honest analysis rooted in the senator's own record. Of course, Van Hollen then attacked Halber. The op-ed went on to say, nothing Halber said should have surprised anyone. We have long documented Van Hollen's troubling pattern, his reflexive criticism of Israel, his indulgence of talking points that track uncomfortably close to the positions of Israel's harshest detractors, and his eagerness to cast himself as the Senate's resident moral scold on Middle East policy. The op-ed finishes with, Van Hollen's blunder was revealing. While Halber's standing in the Jewish community is rooted in decades of trust, Van Hollen's standing has been steadily eroding. Many in the Jewish community and far beyond it have grown weary of his one-note moralizing and refusal to acknowledge the consequences of his rhetoric. By lashing out at Halber for offering a sober, contextual assessment of Van Hollen's record, the senator's actions confirmed what his critics have long argued, that he prefers silencing dissent to confronting it. Halber will debate Van Hollen anytime he wishes on the issues of the Middle East. One other final point for this episode, 442. The issue arises as to whether America first is actually Israel first. And it certainly isn't. America first is America first. The fact of the matter is, pro-Israel policy is America first policy. It isn't the case with all allies. It isn't always the case with Israel. But most of the time, it is America first policy. And if you want to get away from that because you're an anti-Semite bigot, you can try to. But being honest in debate will reveal the truth. Again, which is pro-Israel policy is America First policy in almost all situations. The countries live by, were founded on, and strive every single day to meet the values, the underpinnings, the foundations of their societies, and those values are one and the same. They are values of freedom and liberty and democracy, of equality, of taking care of those who are disadvantaged. And all of that with an underpinning of safety and security for all, and allowing all to live in dignity. Not every country can say that for sure in the world. Indeed, most come nowhere near. But Israel is at the top of the list with the United States. And we have a lot to be proud of in that reality. Until next time, this is the Andrew Parker Show. And I suggest to you all, because it's the right way to live, be kind to your neighbor. For more Smart Plain Talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard and True North Private Investments. Mark Twain once quipped, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. When you are lied about and it spreads, the resulting mayhem and destruction can be, and often is, disastrous." Hi, this is Andrew Parker, co-founder of the Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm. I recently handled a high-profile defamation lawsuit on behalf of a luxury home real estate agent whose business was decimated by falsehoods spread about him. After nearly 2 years of litigation and 2 weeks of trial, the jury came back with a verdict of more than $2 million for our client. Parker Daniels Keyboard. We litigate cases, we try cases, and we win cases. With a record of excellence in achieving extraordinary results, Parker Daniels Keyboard lawyers have consistently won huge verdicts for its clients in the areas of defamation, civil rights violations, regulatory battles, and intellectual property theft. For wise counsel and winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, premier law firm in downtown Minneapolis. Looking to reduce your tax liability and grow your portfolio? Consider Texas-based Texacoma Resources. They have been delivering results for over 40 years in energy investments. Investors may benefit with strategic advantages like depreciation, depletion, and drilling, but should consult their tax advisors for their specific situation. Call True North Investment at 612-968-3442 to learn more. That's True North Investment, 612-968-3442. Texacoma Energy that works for you.